I wanted to make a video about this for a while now. It's about retro collecting, especially within the last few years since COVID started. I don't understand a lot of the elitism around it. I don't understand why people are being excluded from the community just because they have different preferences and how they want to play their games. I don't understand how, you're not a real gamer if you don't play it on the original hardware, and you're not a real gamer if you don't buy Chrono Trigger for like $250 or something like that, and then play it on a Super Nintendo.
What the fuck?
There's a lot of things I can go into right now, and I'm probably going to be ranting and not be organized in my topics, so I do apologize for that, but it's just been eating at me so much. And there is a video by some ordinary gamer, or there's a few videos on that very subject if you want to go look that up. He goes into great detail about emulation and everything, how it's not a sin to emulate your games. And that's another thing I want to clarify. Emulating is not illegal. Piracy is illegal. Okay? I don't condone piracy, but I'm fine with you emulating your games on a computer, because there's so many upsides to emulating. You get better frame rate, you get better resolutions, you get better picture clarity, you get all these different speed up options or filters or whatever. There's so many options with emulating, especially with some newer emulators that are coming out for PS3, Xbox 360, and I think, there's a 3DS emulator coming out that's been out for a while. It's still being worked on heavily. By the way, emulation is not perfect. I'm just going to get that out there. It's not going to be as accurate as the original hardware is, but that's to be expected. People are making this stuff on their own. They're coding it on their own. But anyway, I'm getting off topic for a completely different video. So, and this is coming from someone that's collected video games all their life. I started out with PS2, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. And I was able to keep those games and not have to sell them, which I'm really fortunate with, because, there's some families that are not as fortunate and have to sell those games in order to get new games. That's just the way things are. And then when they grow older, they have to buy these games again, which, is kind of sad to say the least, but, it can't be helped. But, I kept collecting stuff, like, for newer consoles that were coming out over the years. And then, around, I want to say 2013 to 2014, which was when retro game collecting and YouTube and, like, quote-unquote being a nerd was cool and everything. So, and I was looking at all these videos, like, all the Sega stuff, like, I never even knew about, because, Sega was, a lot of kids that I talked to and hung out with were like Nintendo or Microsoft or Sony. No one ever talked about Sega from what I remember, or even like Neo Geo or anything like that. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but it's like, I was learning about all these new things. I'm like, oh, this looks cool. I might as well go buy that. And for a teenager, they were kind of expensive, but they were, for an adult, they were doable. And if you looked around hard enough at Goodwills or just thrifting stores and stuff, you were able to find these games at a decent price. But over the years, it seems like people are just starting to take advantage of, these people, these nostalgia baiting and everything, and increasing those prices over the years and just calling these games rare, which I don't understand. Like, how are these Pokemon games quote unquote rare? Just because they came out like 15 years ago, even though you can find thousands of listings on eBay for them? It doesn't make any sense. If it was quote unquote rare, there would be like maybe 30 listings on eBay, or like 10. Because there are some games where they are legitimately rare and they didn't really print that many copies. Like, for example, I have this game called The Rumblefish on PS2 that only came out in Japan. It was a re-release of an arcade game, and it didn't sell that well. I only saw like maybe 15 to 30 listings on eBay at a time. That I can legitimately understand, but for games and even systems or handhelds, like the Game Boy, the original Game Boy or Game Boy Color consoles or handhelds, whatever you want to call them, people are saying that they're rare, even though they sold millions upon millions of units or copies. I don't understand. I really don't. I don't understand. I guess it's just misinformation, or it's just like, yeah, it's probably just misinformation, or people just lying to other people about it, just to, sell their shit. That's just how it is. But there were certain games that started out like that with the original NES and maybe Super Nintendo. That was like, because I didn't really know any better, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But then around when COVID started, that's when shit really hit the fan, and everything under the sun was getting super expensive. It was like mainly Nintendo stuff. That's what I at least noticed, and some Sony stuff. Maybe Dreamcast too, because Dreamcast that's a whole nother topic to go under. But yeah, it was crazy, and it's still kind of crazy now. Like, you go on to, I use price charting to look at these prices, and you'll see like, oh, Chrono Trigger is around $250. No sane person is going to buy Chrono Trigger for $250 just to play it on their Super Nintendo. Around the time when we were getting our stimulus checks and unemployment benefits money and stuff, yeah, people were buying this stuff because they didn't really, I guess some of these people don't know or just don't care for emulation, even though it's really beneficial and it's cost efficient, and, you got to go out of your way to find these ROMs yourself. But yeah, and it's like, you go onto these sites. Let me see, like, Pokemon Gale of Darkness on the GameCube. It just shot up in price around COVID, and then it just went back down and goes up again. Like, who in their right mind would just spend all this money when they can just, get a ROM or ISO file, get the emulator running, and if they have a decent computer, they can run it at pretty much full speed if they have a good emulator. With all these options for speed up or filter options or resolution options, some of these emulators can run up to 4K with these games. And some of them look really, really good in 4K. Like, there is a game called Auto Mona Lisa. It's like a racing game from Capcom. And the cell shading looks gorgeous in 4K. It looks amazing. But I don't know, it's just, some people say it's a sin to emulate stuff. I don't get that. It's like, oh, you're not a real gamer if you emulate these games. Like, fuck you, okay? I'm not spending all this money, like thousands of dollars, on video games when I could just spend that money to invest in something, to buy a mortgage, buy a car, buy a house, or food, or anything else. Like, if you're well off, okay, that's fine. You can spend your money on whatever you want. I'm not gonna, police you on how to spend your money. But at the same time, don't tell other people how to spend their money. Okay, don't tell people they're missing out because they didn't play Sonic 2 on the Genesis. Even though that's not a really good example, because Sonic 2 is, really, really cheap still. But yeah, it's crazy to me that people think that this stuff is just worth investing into, because it's not. That bubble is going to eventually burst, and it's not helping that these sealed games, and that's a whole other topic, but these sealed games are getting sold for thousands of, even millions of dollars. You see an article that came out where it's like, oh, Super Mario 64 sold for, I don't even remember what it was. It was an outrageous price. It was graded, sealed, and everything. And it was worth so much money. And some people that don't know any better will look at this and be like, oh, I have Super Mario 64 laying in my closet. I bet I could sell that for a lot of money. And then they'll go on eBay or Amazon or whatever and just sell these games at a ridiculous price, and it's just a domino effect. And they'll say like, oh, maybe some of these other games are really expensive, and they'll go on eBay and just list their games and consoles and stuff for ridiculous amounts of prices, and people will buy that stuff. Like, I was a part of that problem too at one point, because I was gaining a lot of money from my job, because I think it was around Christmas time or something, when it's like overtime, you just work overtime. We're unlimited hours around this time. And I wanted to get into all these GameCube games that I missed out on, because I didn't really have the money to buy these games all the time. And then they were just going up in just astronomical prices. I think some of them have gone down now after the craze around GameCube. It's still pretty expensive to get into. I kept looking everywhere for decent prices. I'm talking like decent. The lowest I could buy a GameCube game was like $40 on a console that came out. When did the GameCube come out? I gotta check that. So the GameCube came out in 2001. So it came out over 20 years ago on a console that came out. It's still baffling to me. Look, I get it for some systems like the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn did shit, alright? As soon as it was born, it died the same day, okay? Some of these games like Panzer Dragoon are sold for thousands upon $1,000. Virtua Fighter, whatever games on the Saturn, just astronomical prices. I can kind of see that. But for something like the PlayStation 2, okay, the GameCube, the Super Nintendo, the N64, even like the Xbox, the original Xbox, doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. Okay, I don't understand why this is happening. And some people in the comments, when they see this video, they're already going to be typing an essay about how I'm wrong on every point, on how I should just leave if I don't like how the game community is going. You can't, and that's not really a good point either. Just like, oh, if you don't like it here, then just leave. I'm having like a mental breakdown making this fucking video. I like video games. Alright, I love video games. I'm really passionate about video games. I'm making my own video game. But you can't just do this to people. You can't just gatekeep people out of a community. You can't tell people that they're not a video gamer, they're not a true gamer if they don't do these things that you do. Just play the games how you want to. Okay, if you want to spend all this money on these video games, if you can even afford it, because trust me, if you weren't able to afford this stuff, I would tell you to just not do it at all. Just go straight to emulation if you have a computer. If you do, and you don't care about how much money you spend, go nuts. You can do whatever you want. But for the people that are just pressuring these people into doing this stuff, to spend all this money just to regret it later, because I've had that problem too, where it was like, I spent a lot of money on the game. It's like, was it really worth it? Was it really worth it to just buy a game and not just emulate it? You know, it's the people that, look, I'm not saying the whole retro game community, okay? There is a good amount of the retro game community that I like. Like the refurbishing part of the community. People who fix retro games or consoles. I love that part of the community. That got me into actually fixing my own stuff. And they work. I only failed one time. I just could not get it to work. But the other times, they worked, and I loved it. The people that show off their collections in a more, like, humble way. Not just saying, oh, I got this Neo Geo MVS cartridge for, like, a couple of $1,000, guys. And I know I'm probably going to make a lot of enemies with making this video, but at the same time, it's just like, just invest into a house or something, dude. Like, nobody cares. At the end of the day, it's just the people, those elitists in that community that actually care. Nobody else really cares if you have all this stuff. I have a lot of games, but there's some people who have just a library full of games. Like, I could probably take a picture or a few pictures for you guys right now. Some of the collection that I have displayed and everything, but it's nothing in comparison to some of these people that have like arcades full of these games, or just libraries full of these games, or just these massive game rooms with like, I think the one I saw was like 2,000. I'm like, Jesus fuck, that's insane. But those people usually have the money for it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. It's cool to look at, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't really care. I don't know. At the end of the day, like I said before, if you want to collect these games, it's fine. Yeah, just have the money to afford them. I really don't care what you do with your money. But it's the people that are pressuring people who don't have the money for it, or just pressuring people in general to buy these games and these consoles just to play on the original hardware, which again could fail at any point. I don't know what to tell you. Just let people do what they want. And if they choose to buy all this stuff, that's fine. I was like that before, and now I'm just more and more into emulation. And you know what? Emulation is also something that got me into retro games. Like, I would never have gotten a lot of the Sega stuff even without emulation. Like, I love the Dreamcast because of emulation. I love the Genesis because of emulation. I love the Super Nintendo because of emulation. Yeah, it's just, emulation is good. Piracy isn't. That's the thing. Okay? And if you're someone who doesn't like emulation, that's fine. But don't tell other people that it's a sin to do it, or you shouldn't be doing it at all. And I think all these issues that have accumulated in the video game community, or even just the retro game community, is just why I just quit. I just stopped participating in it. Especially, I'm not saying that these retro game conventions are bad or anything. It's just, you go to a store or a convention and they give you eBay prices. That turns me off. I'm sorry, dude. I know you're trying to make money, but it's just a turn off. I think I've ranted enough. Hopefully I was clear in what I was trying to say to you guys. And hopefully I don't have to re-record this again, because I've recorded this maybe like 5 times. Anyway, I'll see you on a new video. I don't know if it's going to be Sonic related or if it's going to be Pokemon again, because I know you guys are probably tired of me talking about Pokemon, but I love talking about Pokemon, even if I'm being critical of it. But I will see you guys next time.